The idea of soulmates is not one that is centralized to one area. Throughout history and across many cultures, there are many different variations on the idea that there is one out there waiting for us, one soul perfectly matched to our own. For the Hindu, there is the Linu, or the soul which karma dictates you continually cross paths with. Buddhists believe in the idea of pradya samutpada, or that everyone is connected. And in Judaism, you have a bashert, or bestowed, a partner whom destiny has chosen for you. In Asian cultures, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean traditions talk of a red string of fate, which ties a person to their destined partner. The ancient Chinese believe that those who are destined to be together have invisible strings tied around their ankles, while Japanese and Korean myths have a similar piece of red string tied around pinky fingers. This is important as the pinky is connected to the heart by the ulnar artery. Another reason why pinky promises are taken more seriously, as those promises are connected to the heart. The myths have one common denominator. No matter how much the strings are strained and tested, they are not meant to break. One Japanese legend tells of an old man who lives in the moon and comes out every night to search among kin spirits to reunite them on Earth, those who have something to learn from each other. And when he finds them, he ties a red thread to them so they can find their paths. Thus, our red string paths, and not with a location, but with someone else. For the Chinese, the story is quite different. There was once an emperor who was seeking to find his future bride, and to help him in his search, he contacted a powerful witch, who had the ability to see an invisible red thread that connected one person to the one they were destined for. He asked the witch to find the other end of the thread and take him to the woman who would become his wife. The witch accepted the emperor's request and took him to a village, where he was led to a poor peasant woman who was holding a baby in her arms, and she told the young emperor that this is where your thread ends. Hearing this, the emperor became furious, believing that he was being mocked by the witch. He pushed the peasant girl as he left and made her fall, resulting in the child getting hurt and leaving a wound on its forehead. The emperor then ordered the witch to be executed. Many years passed, and when the time came for the emperor to get married, his court advised him to marry the daughter of a very powerful general. The emperor accepted the proposal, and the wedding was fixed. On the day of the wedding, the bride arrived in the temple with a veil covering her face completely, and when she raised the veil, the emperor saw a scar on her forehead similar to the wound he caused to the baby the witch showed him. And while traditionally the legend is thought to be about two lovers that are connected by the red string of fate, the proverb, however, is not specific to solely romantic relationships. Many believe that the red thread connects anyone who is meant to be together. This includes best friends, adopted children, and many other connections that we encounter during our lives. That being said, finding your forever person could be quite daunting. According to psychologist Dr. Mark Borg Jr., what I find is the most common occurrence that happens, no matter how hard you've looked, when you finally meet your soulmate, you freak out, he told the list. Meaning that because it is so overwhelming psychologically and emotionally to get what we always believed we wanted, it tends to usher in an immense amount of anxiety and insecurity. It's just so scary to have our hearts so completely on the line that our minds, sometimes, often, overprotects us through the ambivalent technique. It is mustered because that person, our soulmate, is threatening to matter too much, not because they don't matter enough. And when it comes to a song that perfectly encapsulates what it feels like to find and fall in love with your soulmate, none hit harder than the 1998 country classic by Shania Twain. From this moment on. Hello to all you unfound soulmates, and welcome back to Heard It in a Love Song, the show where we take a trip into the past to discover the history of a love song we all know and love. This week, we are heading to the south, or north, to look into the history of a Canadian queen of country, Shania Twain, and her chart-topping love song From This Moment On. We start our story in Windsor, Ontario, Canada on August 28, 1965. That is where and when we meet up with Sharon and Clarence Edwards, as they welcome to the world their second of three daughters, Eileen Regina Edwards, younger sister to Jill, and future older sister to Carrie Ann. In her autobiography, From This Moment On, she revealed that she was born stillborn, and the doctors did not expect it when she started breathing. Despite that miracle, things weren't rosy for the Edwards family, and by the time Shania was 2 years old, Clarence had abandoned his family. Sharon would move on on, though, moving the family nearly 700 miles north to Timmins, Ontario. It was there that Sharon would meet and fall in love with Jerry Twain, an Ojibwa from the nearby Matagami First Nation. According to the U.S. Census, in the United States, Ojibwe people are one of the largest tribal populations among Native American peoples. In Canada, they are the second largest First Nations population, surpassed only by the Cree. Jerry Twain, who worked as a forestry worker, adopted 4-year-old Eileen and her 2 sisters, and so their surnames were changed to Twain, and they were legally registered as Status Indian. Status Indians, sometimes also referred to as registered Indians, appear on the Indian Register, the official record of registered Indians in Canada, maintained by the federal government. Growing up, her family, who at this point was Eileen, Jill, Carrie Ann, Jerry and Sharon's son Mark, and Jerry's nephew Daryl, whom he had adopted after his sister died, spent weekends and summers at the nearby Matagami Reserve, where she lived a rugged lifestyle, learning to hunt, chop wood, and track and snare rabbits. Her parents introduced her to such artists as Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and Tammy Wynette, and it was her love for Elvis Presley that nurtured her early interest in singing and performing.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In 1973, the family moved about 200 miles south to Sudbury, Ontario, where the 8-year-old Eileen sang in her school choir, community centers, senior citizens' homes, and late nights at a local bar once alcohol was no longer served. She began writing songs at the age of 10 and entered talent contests and performed on local radio. Her mother arranged several television performances on such Canadian shows as Opry North and The Mercy Brothers Show. In 1978, at age 13, she appeared on CBC Television's The Tommy Hunter Show.
And here's a lady who's going to be around for a long, long time. She's only 12 years old. Well, actually, I guess we can safely say she's 13 now, because she'll be 13 on the 28th of August. Ladies and gentlemen, she's super. Eileen Twain.
Very much. Thank you. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Oh, baby, please don't take my man.
But things weren't all roses for the Twain family. In an interview with Nightline, Shania recalled the abuse the family suffered at the hands of Jerry. It was overwhelming for any child to never know what to expect from one day to the next. It could happen to anyone, but also, you don't know if they're going to survive it. She recalled a time when she was 11, where she thought for sure Jerry had killed her mother, in an altercation that sprung from that confusion. She walked in on Jerry dunking her mother's head into the toilet. I thought he'd killed her, she said. I really thought she was drowned, or dead, or that he had just smashed her head in and she was never going to wake up. She looked dead. She was unconscious. She was limp. Just hanging from the toilet, you know, like he had her hair in his hands. So I'd gone through the shock and experience of really believing my mother had died at the moment, and through the humiliation of how I thought she'd been killed by drowning in a toilet, it was very, very obviously hard to take. I ran up behind my dad with a chair in both hands and smashed it across his back, but before I can get away, he punched me in the jaw, and with adrenaline pumping, I punched him back. There was very little workaround. No money, and a lot of violence. I was worried about my father killing my mother. I thought they'd kill each other. My mom was quite violent too, and many nights I went to bed thinking, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. Wait till they are sleeping. And I would wake up and make sure everybody was breathing. To this day, she doesn't understand why her father, a man who had taught her to be a good person, was so verbally, physically, and even sexually abusive to her. Something she doesn't go into detail on, but thinks it's important to know because, quote, I do think it's important that the people understand you can survive these things. I feel sexual abuse goes hand in hand with the physical and psychological abuse when it's somebody you know. I learned to block it out. Abusers need to manipulate you, whether it's before or after, and what I said to myself is, okay, there's something wrong with this person, and that person is not well. I did feel sorry for myself a lot as a kid. It was either go to Children's Aid and get saved now, or I waited up and thought, if I go to Children's Aid, we'd all get separated, and I just couldn't bear that. So we all stayed together, for better or for worse. It was the Jekyll and Hyde in him that was the greatest torture. I loved him and I respected him so much for what he did for us, being the hard worker he was. He set a great example, so I'm still really left confused. I'm baffled by all that. I really am. Burdened as her parents were with 5 kids, there often wasn't enough money to pay the rent or buy groceries, Twain said, so she repeatedly went to school hungry. It's very hard to concentrate when your stomach's rumbling, she said. She remembered getting jealous of the other kids' lunches, but never told anyone. I would certainly never humiliate myself enough to reach out and ask for help and say, you know, I'm hungry. Can I have that apple you're not going to eat? I didn't have the the courage to do that. She would sometimes have nothing more than a poor man's sandwich, which was just bread spread with mayonnaise or mustard, for lunch. In 1980, the family moved back to Timmins, where her parents started a reforestation company, and her performance opportunities became more limited. In high school, she played trumpet in her school band, worked part-time at McDonald's.
Now, you worked at McDonald's when you were a little kid?
Yeah, I worked at McDonald's as a teenager.
Way to go. That's a good gig, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I did my McDonald's thing after school, from like 4 to 7, and then I would go work in the bar from 9 to 1.
God, aren't there child labor laws where you grew up?
Teenager.
Wow.
And sang in a top 40 rock cover band called Longshot. And throughout the early 1980s, she spent her summers working as a tree planting supervisor in her father's company. Although the work was demanding and the pay was low, Twain said, "I love the feeling of being stranded. I'm not afraid of being in my own environment, being physical, working hard. I was very strong. I walked miles and miles every day and carried heavy loads of trees. You can't shampoo, use soap or deodorant or makeup, nothing with any scent. You have to bathe and rinse your clothes in the lake. It was a very rugged existence, but I was very creative, and I would sit alone in the forest with my dog and a guitar and just write songs." She graduated from Timmins High in June 1983. After Longshot's demise, Twain was approached by a cover band led by Diane Chase called Flirt, and toured all over Ontario with them. She also took singing lessons from Toronto-based vocal coach Ian Garrett, often cleaning his house as payment, and she credits Ian as her one and only voice teacher. Country singer Mary Bailey saw Twain perform in Sudbury, Ontario, saying, "I saw this little girl up on stage with a guitar, and it absolutely blew me away. She performed Willie Nelson's Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and Hank Williams' I'm So Lonesome I Can Cry. Her voice reminded me of Tanya Tucker. It has strength and character. A lot of feeling. She's a star. She deserves an opportunity." Bailey later said, "She sang a few songs that she had written, and I thought to myself, this kid is like 19 years old. Where does she get this? This is from a person who's lived 60 years. Bailey took her to Nashville to record some demos and to serve as background vocals, most notably appearing on Sammy Kershaw's third album, Haunted Heart. Through Bailey, Twain met John Kim Bell, who arranged for Twain to appear in a fundraiser for the National Aboriginal Achievement Foundation at Toronto's Roy Thompson Hall in February 1987. And she was really hoping that 1987 would be a banner year for her, and in a be careful what you wish for monkey's paw type situation. 1987 would be in fact a year she would never forget. On November 1st, 1987, while returning home from a work site, Jerry and Sharon Twain were struck head-on by a logging truck carrying timber. They were killed instantly. In order to support her 3 younger siblings, Twain returned to Timmins and took a job singing as part of a Las Vegas-style show at the nearby Deerhurst Resort in Huntsville, Ontario. "I knew I had to look after my younger brothers. I really needed to keep the family together, and I just put all the singing ambitions I had on hold until the rest of my family had grown up." By the end of 1990, the children were fully raised, and her obligation to her family had been met. Twain continued to sing in clubs, and in 1991, she attracted the attention of producer Nora Wilson. Nora and Bailey convinced Nashville music attorney Dick Frank to come to Huntsville to see Twain perform. In 1991, Frank invited her to Nashville, where she signed with the U.S. country division of Mercury Records. They loved her voice. They loved her image. They even loved her name, her first name. They wanted the Twain part gone. But refusing to do so, in order to honor her fallen father, she proposed a different take on the name she would be known as, Shania Twain. Now, there is a little bit of that classic heard it in a love song haze, as the story of where Shania came from is a bit muddled. Shania herself claims it to be an Ojibwa word which means on my way. However, Twain's biographer, Robin Egger, writes, there is a continuing confusion about what Shania means, and if indeed it is a word or phrase at all. There is no mispronounced or misheard word in either Ojibwe or Cree that comes close to the meaning of on my way, yet the legend of her name continues to be repeated in the media to this day. She has also said that she got it from a woman at the Deerhurst Resort. Anyway, the wind blows doesn't really matter. It was set in the stars. Eileen had now become Shania Twain. Her debut release, Shania Twain, was produced by veteran songwriter and producer Nora Wilson. Wilson had wrote or co-wrote numerous hit songs during more than 40 years in the industry, including songs for David Houston, Gene Shepard, Charlie Rich, Charlie Pride, George Jones, and Tammy Wynette. He also produced or co-produced songs for dozens of artists, including Reba McEntire, Joe Stampley, Margot Smith, Sarah Evans, and Kenny Chesney. Shania Twain was released on April 20th, 1993. To promote the album, 3 singles were released. The first, What Made You Say That?
What made you say that? Was it the moonlight? Was it the starlight in your eyes?
Debuted on the Billboard Hot Country Singles, and it spent 18 weeks on the chart, climbing to a peak position of number 55. The second single, Dance with the One That Brought You,
You gotta dance with the one that brought you.
debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 country singles, and climbed to a peak position of number 55 as well. The third and final single from Shania was You Lay a Whole Lot of Love on Me.
You lay a whole lot of love on me.
That single failed to chart. In her 2011 autobiography, From This Moment On, Twain expressed displeasure with her debut album, revealing that she had very little creative control and was frustrated with being unable to showcase her songwriting abilities. However, she did co-write one song on that album, titled God Ain't Gonna Get You For That.
Baby, take a ride in my Cadillac. God ain't gonna get you for that.
The album was more successful in Europe, where Twain won CMT Europe's Rising Video Star of the Year award. And while the album was not a huge success, it did capture the attention of one important fan, Robert John Mutt Lang. It would be a huge disservice to not talk about Robert Lang. He is a big-time record producer and songwriter, and when I say big-time, I mean
big time.
The albums he produced include AC/DC's Hell's Bells, Back in Black, and For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, High and Dry, Hysteria, and Pyromania by Def Leppard, and Four by Foreigner. And the songs he co-wrote or wrote were
Everything I do it for you.
I had no idea he was a world-famous record producer, which was good because I wasn't intimidated by him, Shania would say. The reclusive London-based Lang introduced himself to Shania Twain over the phone, striking up a friendship that evolved into a songwriting collaboration. After meeting in person at the Fanfare Music Convention in Nashville in June 1993, they traveled through Europe together writing songs, falling in love, and were eventually married on December 28, 1993 at the Deerhurst Resort. Over the next year, Shania and Robert wrote and co-produced 10 of the 12 tracks on the follow-up to her eponymous debut, titled The Woman in Me. Recorded at a cost of $700,000, largely financed by Lang, it was reportedly the most expensive country album ever produced, and it was released on February 7th, 1995. Of the 12 tracks on the album, 5 songs charted. The album's first single, Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under,
Whose bed have your boots been under?
went to number 11 on the Billboard Country chart. This was followed by her first country top 10 hit and first number 1 hit single, Any Man of Mine.
Any man of mine better walk the line.
The title track, The Woman in Me,
The woman in me.
peaked at number 14, and 3 more songs made it to number 1. If You're Not In It for Love, I'm Outta Here,
You're not in it for love, I'm out of here.
You Win My Love,
You win my love, you win my soul.
and No One Needs to Know.
I think I've been hit by you, baby. No one needs to know right now.
No One Needs to Know was selected for the original soundtrack for the 1996 film Twister, which was a first for Twain.
It's coming!
It's here. Music from the motion picture soundtrack Twister, featuring the smash hit Humans Being by Van Halen,
Somebody has to try to stop it.
and Long Way Down by Goo Goo Dolls. With performances by music from the motion picture soundtrack Twister on Warner Brothers CDs and cassettes.
Breaking the traditional country mold, Twain elected to not tour in support of The Woman in Me, choosing instead to focus on music videos, extensive publicity, and interview tours, and carefully selected television performances. The Woman in Me won the Grammy for Best Country Album at the 38th Grammy Awards, beating out Thinking About You by Trisha Yearwood, Dwight Live by Dwight Yoakam, John Michael Montgomery by John Michael Montgomery, Junior High by Junior Brown, and Music for All Occasions by the Mavericks. The 38th Grammys were a big year in the Heard It in Our Love Song universe, as both Seal and Alanis Morissette cleaned up house that year for songs we've already covered, Kiss from a Rose and You Oughta Know. After releasing and promoting her breakthrough album, The Woman in Me, the follow-up, Come On Over, saw Twain entirely collaborating with Robert again on a variety of country pop numbers, mostly up-tempo. Given much more creative freedom than for its predecessors, Twain and Lang sought to break the conventional country music formula on the album and explore the country pop genre to its fullest extent. Come On Over was released on November 4th, 1997. Of the 16 songs the pair co-wrote for the album, a staggering 12 of them were released as singles, and of the 12, 6 charted. Love Gets Me Every Time.
The love gets me every time my heart changes my mind.
Love Gets Me Every Time peaked at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100. Don't Be Stupid, You Know I Love You
Don't be stupid, you know I love you.
became Twain's 6th song on the Billboard Hot 100, where it peaked at number 40. You're Still the One
You're still the one I run to, the one that I belong to.
peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and would oddly enough go on to be covered by Prince and Marvin King. Here's a little clip. I know the audio is horrendous, but you get the idea. From This Moment On, more on that later, That Don't Impress Me Much,
That don't impress me much.
which peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, and Man, I Feel Like a Woman,
Man, I feel like a woman.
which peaked at number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album set a record for the longest stay in the top 20 of the Billboard 200 for 151 consecutive weeks. Come On Over topped the Billboard Country Album chart for a record 50 weeks, finishing second to Garth Brooks' Sevens in 1998, first in 1999, and third in 2000 behind Dixie Chicks' Fly and Faith Hill's Breathe. It was certified diamond by the RIAA on April 7th, 1999. Come On Over and You're Still the One were nominated for a combined 6 awards at the 41st Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year for You're Still the One, along with Ray of Light by Madonna, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls, and The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica, all of which lost out to My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. Come On Over was nominated for Album of the Year, along with Ray of Light by Madonna, Version 2.0 by Garbage, who we've also covered, The Globe Sessions by Sheryl Crow, all of which, understandably, lost out to The Miseducation to Lauryn Hill. You're Still the One was nominated for Song of the Year, along with Iris by Goo Goo Dolls, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith, and Lean on Me by Kirk Franklin's New Nation, all of which lost to My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. It also won Best Female Country Vocal Performance, beating out Emmylou Harris for Love Still Remains, Faith Hill for This Kiss, Leanne Womack for A Little Past Little Rock, and Trisha Yearwood for There Goes My Baby. And Best Country Song, beating out Steve Wariner for Holes in the Floor of Heaven, Vince Gill for If You Ever Have Forever in Mind, Faith Hill for This Kiss, and Garth Brooks to Make You Feel My Love. It was also nominated for Best Country Album, along with Sevens by Garth Brooks, Faith by Faith Hill, and Where Your Road Leads by Trisha Yearwood, losing out to Wide Open Spaces by the Dixie Chicks. Come On Over became the biggest selling album of all time by a female artist, surpassing Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill in 1995, with over 39 million copies sold. It is also the best-selling country album of all time, and the best-selling album of the 1990s, and in the top 15 best-selling albums of all time, right between Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses and Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. But let's talk about this week's topic, From This Moment On.
There is nothing I wouldn't give.
From This Moment On was written during a soccer game in Italy, with Twain explaining, "We were in Italy at a soccer game, and my husband loves sports. I didn't know the game that well, so my mind drifted and I started writing. Initially, she thought that From This Moment On would be perfect for Celine Dion. However, as Twain and Lang developed the song, they concluded that it would work best as a duet. While their first choice for the duet was Elton John, they chose country singer Brian White instead. White has charted 17 singles on the Billboard country charts, of which 4 reached number 1, Someone Else's Star,
I guess I must be wishing on someone else's star.
Rebecca Lynn,
Ring around the rosy pocket full of dreams and poses. Patty cake, a baker's man, tag your rip, kick the can.
So Much for Pretending,
I was looking forward to a happy ending. So much for pretending.
and Sittin' on Go.
I could be yours in a second or so. Ooh, baby, come and get me.
Twain later described White as the best male voice in country music, beyond country music. He's an excellent singer, so he needed to be on this record because the song soars. It demands that. It demands dynamics. White explained that by the time the song went to recording, the song was mostly finalized, and he described it as extremely challenging vocally.
The way you sang that was good. From this moment, you can definitely stretch out a tad more, I think. Definitely have that mindset in your head that you're singing to all those millions of lighters, you know? It's that kind of vibe. I think you should be louder on moment 2. Just hit.
It's the right distance though.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah,
man,
Okay, here we go.
moment, life has begun. You are the one, right beside you is where I belong.
Initial first-run pressings of the international version of the Come On Over album during March 1998 feature White on the song, while subsequent pressings features the song as a solo recording. In early 1998, Mercury executives were informed that White would be unable to promote the song alongside Shania Twain, and therefore Twain had to return to the studio to re-record White's parts on her own. White later claimed that he had no hard feelings towards Twain for him being excluded for the international version of the song, stating, "They're releasing this song as a pop record, and I'm not a pop artist, so my feelings aren't hurt." From this moment on, achieved considerable commercial success, and in the United States, the song reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the Adult Contemporary, and number 6 on the Hot Country Songs chart. From this moment on, comes in at 68 beats per minute. There's just something so breathtaking about finding that person or people that your soul latches onto. There are no games. There is no confusion. Only a solid and definitive answer from the universe. This is what love is. This is what love should always be. And I think that from this moment on really nails what it feels like to know that your person is your forever person, whoever they may be. This week's Love Homework is another song about knowing exactly who it is you are in love with. Check out Remember Us by Gabriel Royal.
No, I don't remember us falling in love. This sort of thing is old-fashioned.
And that's it, the end of another love song history lesson. If you like what you learned and you'd like to continue learning, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a like below, and join me next week for another look into a love song we all know and love. Until next time, remember, you're the reason I believe in love. And remember, you heard it in a love song.
From this moment,